Have you ever had negative thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast.
Welcome to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. So I am so excited, so honored. I have a fire brother from another mother on the podcast today, John Lee Dumas, JLD, host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. JLD, welcome to the show.
Jeff, it is amazing to be here. You are truly a fire brother. And man, if I can look half as good as you with my shirt off at your age, I will be unbelievably thrilled.
Well, thank you. Thank you, my friend. So I am a huge fan of energy. So let's just do two brief exercises with me real quick. Let's do a couple power breaths in. So let's breathe all the way in and out. Good. Another breath in and out. Final breath in and out. Awesome. All right. I'm going to count 3, 2, 1. We're going to yell boom and hit our chest at the top of our lungs, get some energy going this morning. All right. In 3, 2, 1, and boom. Boom. Love it. Thanks for doing it. Energy is such a contagious thing. So I eat, sleep, and breathe morning habits, rituals, and routines. And I love asking my guests, hey, what is your go-to morning habit or ritual that really sets you down that path towards success?
So I have what I call the perfect morning. And honestly, it's not something that I always get to achieve because life does happen, but it's something that I strive for. And when it happens, life is good, brother. So I wake up, hopefully with the sun. I do have an alarm clock. So I have a no later than wake up time of 6:15. But if I get up earlier, naturally, it's always a good day. Obviously the day before, having gone to bed by 9:15, 9:30, the latest, because sleep is everything for me. Super priority. Then I walk my dog, little Gussie Poo. I'll give you guys a little video shot of that guy right there.
Nice.
An adorable 10-month-old golden doodle right now. He's simply the best. And so I get outside. I'm breathing, Jeff. I'm doing those breathing exercises that you just talked about, like taking deep breaths in, deep breaths out. I'm taking in the amazing Puerto Rican, ocean air and the breeze and the trees around me and all that jazz, watching the sunrise, seeing the sky turn blue to get my cortisol levels rising while I'm doing that. I come back, I go right to my gym. I start off with a 30-minute infrared sauna immediately just to kind of get that blood flowing and to really, saunas are amazing for detoxing as well. I get done with that. I have a workout in my gym. Then I have a stretching exercise that I do. Then I go out to my pool side, which has a beautiful panoramic of the Caribbean, it's epic down here. And I have a little reading session of a book that I'm currently reading in the sun to just get, again, some real morning sun hitting my body for that natural vitamin D. Then I do put that book aside after 15 minutes of reading, and I'll do a 10 to 15 minute meditation. Then I put that down. Then I move on to a journaling. I've actually created three journals myself. So I'm a big journaler, and I definitely like to put things down on paper. Of course, always starting off with something unique that I'm grateful for, and not to get into a rabbit hole right here, but everybody's like, I'm grateful for my kids. Of course you are. Just don't say it 7 days a week. There's a lot of other things you should be identifying that you're grateful for to really take a gratitude to that next level. So that's my morning routine. Don't always get to it, but when I do, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I love 3 things that you pointed out there. One is just breathing. And I think that is something that so many people miss, right? Is because it's so automatic. We do it day in, day out. But breathing through your nose, being aware of your breath kind of gives you that centering process. 2, getting outside into the sunlight. I'm up in the Northeast. I know you spent some time in Maine. I'm up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it's a little bit difficult in the winter, but getting outside, getting that natural sunlight. And then the gratitude journal and picking out true pieces that you're grateful for, things in your life, things that you have, and really getting into some deep thought about those particular items.
Yep, that's my morning.
Love it, love it. So I know you weren't always a award-winning podcast host, right? I always love the backstory, and I know it, but share it a little bit with my network, because it's definitely an interesting tale of where you were at and then feeling trapped and kind of hitting that breaking point.
Grew up in Maine, the way life should be. It's a great state. And then I went to college in Providence, Rhode Island, PC, and did a little Army ROTC scholarship there. And then after my time in the Army, or after my college experience, I was an officer in the Army for 8 years. I did a 13-month tour of duty in Iraq as a tank commander, which means you're in charge of 4 tanks, 16 men. Then after my military service, I tried law school, dropped out after a semester, tried corporate and commercial, tried corporate finance, lasted about a year, commercial real estate, residential real estate, just wasn't finding my thing. But I was always educating myself, Jeff, and like reading business books, listening to podcasts, like loving just bettering myself and learning from others, their mistakes, by the way, and their successes as well. And I just realized there was a void in the podcast space back in 2012. I wanted there to be a daily podcast. I could wake up every morning and do that morning routine that you mentioned, but be consuming a new interview with a successful and inspiring entrepreneur. And that show did not exist. And I was like, this doesn't exist. Like, how is that even possible? And so I said, you know what? Let's follow Gandhi's amazing advice and be the change you want to see in the world. And that was when I decided to launch Entrepreneurs on Fire, the first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And guess what, Jeff? The day it launched back in 2012, it was the best daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. It was the worst daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. It was the only daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. So people are like, John, how are you so successful so fast? There was no competition. I was the only show in town. So little secret tip hint here. How can you be the only show in town? And whatever that looks like in your niche, in your vertical, that's how you're going to win. And then as we speak to date, I did 2,000 episodes in a row. Then I peeled back to 5 days per week. So now I have over 3,000 episodes total. Over 100 million listens, over 1.4 million listens every single month. And for 8 years in a row now, we've been generating 7 figures of net revenue every single year. And we publish all of our income reports 89 months in a row now over at eofire.com/income. And
I just, one, thank you for your service. 2, your consistency is just so amazing, right? And I speak to that so many times, that consistency is so much more important than intensity. And it's funny how similar some of the past, where I did a daily episode of 4 to 8 minutes, just a motivational morning for a full year. And then I backed off and wanted to interview entrepreneurs and do some things a little bit different. So for somebody starting out, right, there's that fear of, and I'm sure you experienced it a little bit. All right, I'm going to reach out to entrepreneurs to interview them. What was that process like getting started, and what kind of fears or limiting beliefs did you have to kind of get through to step into that role?
Well, I had the imposter syndrome, like everybody does when they start. I said, who am I to reach out to Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, Barbara Corcoran, all these successful entrepreneurs still today, but back in 2012, they were still huge names and massively successful. Who am I to interview these amazing individuals? And, somebody with no broadcast experience, no great communication skills, not really knowing how to facilitate a conversation. I mean, my background was an officer in the Army, corporate finance, a law school dropout, a failure in real estate, essentially. So like, who was I to do these things? And it was the imposter syndrome. But what did I do? I put in the flipping reps. I got up every single morning and I did an episode for Entrepreneurs on Fire. And I went from bad, I went from really bad to just kind of bad to okay over the course of months and years, because I was doing it every single day. And if I was doing it one day a week, by the way, I probably would have been like, man, I'm just not really improving. Well, of course I'm not improving. I'm doing it one day a week. I mean, who's going to get better at doing the thing one day a week? You can't work out one day a week. You can't practice golf one day a week. You can't do any of these things and actually become a master and actually become great. So to me, that was why that daily practice of just getting up and doing the work, putting in the reps was so key. And I think people got to figure that out for themselves. Like they've got to figure out how can they incorporate some activity on a daily basis that's getting them closer to their goal every single day.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you mentioned, hey, you were really bad to begin with, because I remember the first episode I recorded, just no passion, no energy, kind of because I to the same thing. I didn't have.
I mean, I didn't see it and listen to it, but I know you were terrible, because we all are when we start. And that's what's crazy, is that so many people watching right now, they're comparing like their today to my today. Like compare your today to my 8.5 years ago. Like that's a fairer comparison. Like, why are you trying to compare yourself to the people that are at the top of the industry right now that have done 3,000 plus interviews and, have an award-winning podcast? That's not fair. So stop doing that to yourself.
Yeah. And I think that cripples so many people into just feeling like a failure, feeling like they can't do it. And if that continues to spiral in their minds and out of control, then what ends up happening a week, a month, 2 months down the road, they give up, they quit.
We call it in the podcast world pod fading. It happens. People start off with so much enthusiasm and this and that, and they have unrealistic expectations, and then they just fade away into the distance. And it's sad because they're producing value and great content, but they just don't have really one of the key things is an accountability group. They don't have people that are going to pick them up on the days they're down. They're going to support them. They're going to, give them advice when they need it. So like that's a critical part to your journey.
It so is. And I had Evan Carmichael on the podcast over the summer, and he said the same thing. Like, not everybody wakes up on fire every day. It's just,
nobody does.
We're human beings, right? Tony Robbins doesn't, Evan Carmichael, JLD, Jeff
has a plunge pool because he's got to use this like 40-degree water to get him in the zone, because nobody does.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings to a great point. When you started off your podcast journey, did you have any coaches, mentors, or anybody?
Of course. Unless I did. I mean, I hired a very successful business podcast coach, Jamie Masters of the Eventual Millionaire, and she was amazing. She was the reason why I was able to create a very solid show from day one. Not that I was a good host, but the show itself was solid. I joined Cliff Ravenscraft's podcast mastermind for a full year. I dropped $3,500 to be a part of this mastermind that was, again, accountability partner. I could go there for advice, for support, for guidance. Those were two critical factors to my success that, again, people that don't succeed, they don't have those factors in their life.
Yeah, the accountability piece, as well as having help, right? I think we see asking for help maybe as a weakness. Well, it really isn't. Nobody gets there without a team or a support group or those around you that have done it before, that you can learn from and accelerate your path forward that much quicker.
Agreed.
Yeah. So where can people find you, listen to you, all that good stuff? I appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope this was some fire for people in the morning here. And, I'm super passionate about just like others like yourself and, other amazing entrepreneurs out there, just sharing their brand of passion, their brand of excitement, their brand of fire. So if you want to find out a little bit more about me, my podcast is Entrepreneurs on Fire. We have quite a back catalog of over 3,000 episodes. And something I'd love to share with your audience that I'm very passionate about is I spent all of 2020 busting my little booty writing my first traditionally published book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. This is something I never would have written 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, because I wasn't ready to write a book then. But now I've written a book that's a culmination of the 3,000 plus interviews I've done with Entrepreneurs on Fire. It's allowed me to construct a 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. And I'm going to be honest with your listeners, Jeff, with your viewers. If you read this book and you apply this 17-step roadmap, and in 6 months, you haven't found your version of uncommon success, which, by the way, I hope you define in this book, you should give up. And I'm not saying that to be mean. And I'm not saying you should give up in life. You just shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Frankly, you should not be an entrepreneur. And not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur or an online business marketer or whatever you want to call yourself. And that's okay. Because maybe you should be doing something where you're a number 2 at a company or a number 37 at Facebook, who, by the way, is much richer than Jeff and I combined will ever be, because they just are crushing it because they're in their zone of fire, in their zone of genius. But this book is a 17 chronological step roadmap to your financial freedom and fulfillment. I am passionate about it. I brought 17 of the world's top entrepreneurs to contribute to this book as well. And it is spectacular every single step of the way. It goes live March 23rd, but don't wait, because pre-orders make or break book launches. And so we have 5 amazing bonuses that are going to be attached to every single pre-order that, by the way, disappear. When the book goes live, these bonuses are gonzo. So if you want these 5 bonuses, pre-order the book over at uncommonsuccessbook.com. You can learn more about the book there, see the 5 bonuses, a little sneak peek on one of them. I'm shipping all 3 of my journals, the Freedom, Mastery, and Podcast Journal, to your door for a $17 pre-order. You're getting $150 worth of journals shipped to your door, plus 4 other amazing bonuses. uncommonsuccessbook.com. Get over there now.
Love it, JLD. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure, Jeff. Adios.
Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.